Thanks so much for being here, Pat.
Well, it's great to be here. When you ask me to do something, I tend to say yes. So glad to be here.
Well, I really appreciate that.
Through that music scene is how I ended up, meeting, that's how I met John Stewart, who I later formed the Autumn Defense with, and then, he's the reason that I joined Wilco.
Absolutely. That background is all incredible, though. Like from your childhood, all those different bands, you definitely put the work in. That's for sure. When do you know you, or in a production role, it could be another artist, when do you think you or someone is like ripe or ready to record? Like, when do you know that instead of like forcing it or feeling like you have to?
That's a really big question. The tools are there, now. I'm just thinking about myself as a teenager. I was in a very, unique position in that, I was spending all that time in the recording studio. Now, granted, it took several years for me to get up the confidence, or even just the confidence in anything I was actually doing to ask for the keys to the place, to get in and record anything. So that took me several years. And back then, whereas now it's GarageBand. I mean, back in the 80s, it was having access to a 4-track cassette recorder. You knew somebody that had one, or you could get one. And I kind of think of it sort of like, it's kind of like photographs. It's like, we can so easily delete a picture of ourselves that we don't like now. It's like, whereas before digital, the digital world was our world, you wouldn't be as likely, you might, but you wouldn't be as likely to just tear up a photograph and throw it away if you didn't love the way you looked at it. And then 10 years later, 15, 20 years later, you look back at it and think, you're glad that you have it, and you think you look great. You're like, I wish I looked like that now. The ability to find a community has never, it's never been, I feel like it's never been more accessible.
Right.
Finding that community now is very different than it was, the hoops you'd have to jump through to find your community back when I was a teenager, or in my 20s. Not that one carries any more weight or is any more profound than the other, but it's just knowing that it is possible to find your community now just by making your work and getting it out there. That's got to provide some comfort to young artists. Thank goodness it's there, because at least if you're making something and it's yours and you're not part of a machine, you're not part of a label, you don't have a big team around you. You have the tools to get the word out, if you've been making your music on your computer, you have, the very same box that you've been using to make the music. You have the potential to broadcast that to the world. So, pretty powerful.
What is the, any DIY advice you have, and then maybe advice you have if there is a budget, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, if there's lots of good gear out there, if you don't have if you don't have a ton of money to spend, you don't have to spend, tens of thousands of dollars to get a decent recording setup at home.
We often forget we have a computer in our pockets.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. And I don't. I know there are apps now where you can actually do. I think you can actually do multi-track recording on your phone. I'm sure you can. I've never used them, but I know people do. Oh yeah, I mean, and iPhone recordings can sound cool. I mean, I know I've taken things from voice memos that I've made on my iPhone and used them as the foundation for a track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's been done on a bunch of Wilco tracks because Jeff does a lot of put sketches down on his iPhone, and sometimes he just gets really attached to the way the guitar sounds on that recording, and just doesn't quite sound right replacing it with in the studio with a proper, quote unquote, proper mic and proper equipment. Mm-hmm. So it'll get imported into the session and then we're playing along to that. So yeah, exactly. I mean, we have a lot of tools around us all the time now. There's lots of ways to get your ideas flowing.
Exactly.
Without much money at all.
Yeah. What kind of headphones do you like? And obviously you have access to monitor speakers, but
headphones. Yeah, we're getting into some specifics here.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that part of it. Actually, I really enjoyed like seeing the orders come in, seeing who they were coming from, where they were coming from.
Exactly.
Sending thank you emails, and it was really pretty satisfying.
Well, and I highlight that because like that, to me, that kind of defines building a sustainable career, because you just said it, who those people are, right? So you can communicate with them in the future about books, about music, about shows. And, historically in the modern era, like we as musicians and music industry people, let me back up. I've said this on almost every episode, but tech companies are the most valuable companies in the world because they have all of our data. And as musicians and music industry people, we have no problem just giving that data to Spotify, iTunes, MySpace before that, right? So to me, building a sustainable music career is collecting email addresses, collecting mobile phone numbers, and also knowing where fans are, which obviously is crucial for a touring strategy. But I also think there's creative things you can do in pandemic times with that. And you also referenced something that I did on my book, which is we essentially, because I also did a pre-order, and we essentially recouped before release. And I think that's a model that, on one hand, people are definitely doing in music, but I think it's something we need to like talk more about.
What was really encouraging, or just a really nice thing to know about this experience, was just seeing that people want to participate in culture.
Yeah.
And so, like you say, like let them, give them an opportunity to.